After the encouraging statement from the governor, I thought that maybe I should skip my speech and just say, yes, we can. And then we go back into small groups and we write down all the good proposals we have, and that's it. But as I have prepared, I think I will give it a chance for you to listen to some of what WFAD is doing, and also my thoughts from 40 years of experience, more or less, with development and dealing with substance abuse on the global, local, regional, national level. Where do I put this? I put it. Just press. No. Oh, there. There it is. Let me start with an overview of World Federation Against Drugs. It was founded in Sweden in 2009. It's quite a young network, international network. It's a multilateral community of non-governmental organizations and individuals. The work is built on the principles of universal fellowship and the basic human and democratic rights. The aim of the World Federation Against Drugs is to work for a drug-free world. And we have something like 250 member organizations on the global level. What we are doing, we are working for prevention, we are working for recovery, and we are also working strictly with the Convention on the Rights of the Child, because that's the only convention that talks about how to deal with drugs and who should not deal with drugs. We are doing systematic advocacy. We are talking about harms to others, and we are talking about the industry. We are supporting our members, especially here in India today and the coming 2 days. We are also planning a similar forum in Singapore later in November. We have plans to do it in East Africa, a smaller one in the beginning of next year. And in November as well, we are going to the Balkans to have a regional forum there. Sometimes an utopian vision can easily be dismissed in our world of fast solutions and pragmatism. That is why I would like you to borrow a few words from Eduardo Galeano, who is saying the following. Utopia lies at the horizon. When I drew nearer by 2 steps, it retreats 2 steps. If I proceed 10 steps forward, it swiftly slips 10 steps ahead. No matter how far I go, I can never reach it. What then is the purpose of utopia? It is to cause us to advance. And to advance we need. At the times like this, we all need to unite around our utopia of a world where people live free from the harm caused by drugs. We are the absolute majority, but I'm really worried that our voices are not being heard. Instead, we hear loud and clear voices of those who wish to make drugs more present in our lives. We are hearing those who have already made their life fortune on selling drugs, saying that everything will be fine when lives are lost, families broken, and hopes vanished. I'm standing here and represent civil society that speaks for the silent majority. Children, spouses, parents, grandparents, colleagues, friends, classmates, teammates, innocent victims of violence, innocent victims of neglect, innocent victims of accidents. Witness to suffering, witness to loss, the silent majority. The majority that images a better world. The majority that wishes to live free from drugs. The majority that wishes to live free from problems caused by drugs. And I hope that by this speech I can deliver the voice of the silent majority and discuss what civil society, what we can do and is doing to make the silence roar. In the UNODC World Drug Report 2019, there is an estimation that 188 million people are using cannabis. 53 million people are using opioids. 29 million people are using amphetamine-type stimulants. 21 million people are using ecstasy. And some 18 million people are using cocaine. But UNODC also estimates that 4.6 billion adults around the world are choosing a drug-free life. That is more than 94% of the world's population in the age between 18 and 64 who did not use drugs the last 12 months. Despite such a striking low prevalence, out of 43 factors, drug use was number 19th in the ranking of the top global killers. Tobacco was number 2nd, and alcohol was number 3. The cost of the harms in terms of human lives, health, public safety, environment, and GDP are disproportionate and already far too high for us to stand idle by and watch. Inaction may result in much higher levels of drug-related harm in the future. There is no reason to wait and hesitate. Governments and civil society have effective and evidence-based measures at hand. The growing scientific evidence provides insight into causes and consequences of drug use. We know the risk and the protective factors leading to or discouraging people from drug use. We have sufficient knowledge about drug addiction, better understanding about what works in prevention and treatment, as well as insights gained from the real-life experiments of cannabis legislation. Given the harm drug use causes, tackling the world drug problem has been recognized as a priority of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Governments has committed to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages by strengthening the prevention and the treatment of substance abuse, including narcotic drug abuse and harmful use of alcohol in Target 3.5. Today, we live in a world of contrasts, in a world of abundance and scarcity. The world drug problem is no exception. On the one hand, we are flooded with prescription drugs, especially in high-income countries, and on the other hand, there is a lack of access to essential medications in low- and middle-income countries. Furthermore, in some cases, young people use drugs in order to add excitement to their lives, not knowing what else to do. And in others, poverty fuels drug use among those living in extreme conditions who as well do not know what else to do. It is obvious that in order to create a world where people can live in dignity, the root causes leading to drug use need to be addressed. And as so many civil organizations are already selflessly addressing. But what civil society organizations are as well doing is that they are demanding and supporting the governments to implement comprehensive solutions. Solutions that do not include the introduction of social programs, education and health services, involvement of communities and investing in people's safety and well-being are insufficient and won't see the expected result benefiting the old people. We cannot afford ineffective solutions. We need to act, and we need to hold each other accountable. We need to celebrate the victories and advancements we make, but we cannot stop making thorough analysis and closing our eyes from what is not working. When we look back at the developments in narcotic drugs fields in the latest decade, we can say that not is all bad, but not is all good either. Let me take you through the progress that we observe and that encourages many civil society organizations to continue their work in the slums of Kenya, in the hill tribe communities of the Golden Triangle, or in the neighborhoods in Colorado. Given the efforts to reduce the world drug problem in the last decade, between 2009 and 2019, it is crucial to note that according to the UNODC data, the prevalence of drug use has remained strikingly low and relatively stable. The 2016 United Nations General Assembly Special Session on Drugs, what we call UNGAS 2016, was a landmark achievement in the response to the world drug problem for its success in establishing a clear global consensus on the key causes and consequences of the world drug problem, the importance of comprehensive and balanced policy interventions, the need to strengthen the socio-economic aspects of drug demand prevention and reduction, the reaffirmation of the commitment to the UN drug conventions, and the importance of the public health perspective and the urgent need for joint action. Part of the UNGAS 2016 success in the consensus to align drug policy with public health objectives. This is a positive shift in the line with the UN drug conventions that strengthens countries in their efforts to move from dealing with drug use exclusively as a criminal justice issue to increasing involvement of the health and social issues. In the past decade, the knowledge and evidence base concerning effective and sustainable alternative development program has significantly improved. Implementation of best practices in alternative development has yielded increasingly impressive results. The inclusion of narcotic drug abuse under the Sustainable Development Goal 3 to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages must be regarded as a milestone achievement of the response to the world drug problem in the last decade. This illustrates the global consensus to tackle illicit drugs as obstacles to development and as public health issues. There are more UN organizations, such as the World Health Organization, the UN Human Rights Council and the Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights, the UNAIDS and the United Nations Development Programme that have become important stakeholders in tackling the world drug problem. This is very positive because it signifies the considerable development of comprehensive approaches to the world drug problem, covering different aspects and perspectives. In the decade since 2009, more guidelines have been compiled and made available for governments and communities to implement evidence-based interventions in the fields of drug prevention and treatment. But as I said, as much as all these developments sound promising, we cannot be content and stop as all is not good. Widespread inaction towards a more humane, balanced and comprehensive approach to tackling drug use in many countries remains troublesome. Too few people receive the help they need and deserve. In countries like that, drug policies often serve as an excuse for inhumane behavior and human rights violations on the part of the governments in question. The 2019 World Drug Report shows that drug markets are expanding and diversifying at a scale never documented before. This supply-driven expansion of drug markets has reached the highest level ever recorded, with the production of opium and the manufacture of cocaine fueling this development. Along with the rapidly changing drug markets, the addiction crisis is accelerating. Non-medical use of prescription drugs and the new psychoactive substances are increasingly coexisting with heroin and cocaine that have been available for a long time. And more psychoactive substances are being synthesized, and more are available than ever, with increasing reports of associated harm and fatalities. One of the most serious shortcomings in the response to the world drug problem over the past decade is the lack of adequate treatment and recovery services. Drug treatment and health services continue to fall short of need. Just 1 in 6 people in the need of treatment actually receiving it. The severity of the treatment gap differs between regions. For example, in Africa, only 1 in 18 people with drug use disorder receives treatment. There are civil society organizations that do the noble and very difficult job in filling the treatment gap, but we all know that they are stretched and that the need must be answered by the governments. Investment into alternative development remains an underused approach to drug supply reduction, although political support for alternative development is strong and widespread. Addressing the world drug problem from a public health perspective is too often limited to the health of the individual, instead of utilizing methods addressing causes and consequences in the broader population. The access to essential pharmaceutical products is an important element in any national health strategy. Universal health coverage cannot be achieved and guaranteed without availability, affordable and quality-assured health technologies. After so many years of discussions, WHO estimates that still 5.5 billion people, 83% of the world's population, live in countries with low or non-existing access to controlled medicines for treatment and severe pain. The harsh law enforcement, brutal police force, even violence and militarization of the response to the world drug problem has not completely ceased and remains a serious problem in a number of countries. But another concerning trend that is obviously in the rise is a war for drugs. We are witnessing a global, well-funded propaganda campaign to change people's perception of narcotic drugs. It is a war over politicians' minds, over media people's minds, over young people's minds, and over parents' minds. Moreover, it's becoming increasingly clear that the ultimate goal of this propaganda war is to make narcotic drugs just acceptable worldwide and widely used, just as integrated in the culture as alcohol is today in the Western culture. International and cross-border collaboration and coordination among governments and regions has been inadequate and has further contributed to the stalled process. We have not learned from the lessons in alcohol and tobacco regulations implementation. The implementation often fails due to the interference of the industries, profiting from the freedom of trade of these substances. Experience from many decades with alcohol and tobacco control show that there is no good reason to legalize other harmful substances that have lower prevalence, availability, and public acceptance. Moreover, the new drug industries, such as the marijuana industry, are bonding with the alcohol and tobacco industry, learning from the playbook of their successful older brothers in how to conduct lobby campaigns, distorting effective narcotic drug policies if they are in place. Civil society is playing a crucial role in revealing the practices of these harmful industries that show no respect to the well-being of people if their profit should suffer. The large-scale interventions that address the lack of services, infrastructure needs, drug-related violence, xenophobia, racism, poverty, unemployment, social exclusion, marginalization, and social disintegration have largely been ignored in the response to the drug problems. Here we again have several spearheading examples of civil society efforts to approach the problems in a comprehensive way. Another danger that is important to highlight is that the international conversation about the world drug problem is dominated by a Western agenda, where the national backdrop is the more affluent populations, well-developed health system, social security services, and the reasonable good government structures and practices. But in many countries in the global south, conditions are very, very different from this. Weak health systems are already overstretched by the burden of the classical communicable diseases. And the new non-communicable diseases like cancer, diabetes, and cardiovascular diseases put additional burdens on the health services. With such a backdrop, already overstretched health systems do not provide the solutions necessary to tackling the growing drug problem. The needs of countries in the global south deserve more serious consideration. Prevention of the earliest possible stage is the only viable solution. Despite progress and a number of positive developments, as presented in this report, the list of shortcomings, gaps, and persistent problems in the response to the world drug problem remains too long. However, for each of these remaining issues, effective evidence-based responses are available. There is no need to invent the wheel, but there is a great need to grab the steering wheel as the global community knows what to do. Science shows what works. Guidelines and political commitment exist and have been considerable achievements of the work in the past decade. What is critically missing is the political will to make good on promises, to mobilize political leadership, to turn commitments into action, and to implement evidence-based policies and programs. In the countries themselves, do not pay enough attention to these solutions. It is the civil society organizations that back up the work and simultaneously demand governments to take care of the steering wheel. I have shared with you our analysis of what has improved and what is stalling. But this kind of analysis is not enough if it's not supported by concrete steps to take. These are the solutions where civil society plays a crucial role in the implementation. Civil society is often the only actor that invests resources in prevention. We need to change that. Civil society stands in the front of mobilization of the communities. Civil society is often the only actor that offers affordable treatment, rehabilitation, and harm reduction options. Civil society plays a crucial role when it comes to reintegration of people with drug problems. Civil society is often the only provider of support for health groups of drug users and people in recovery. When I was preparing this speech, every time I was about to talk about what governments need to do, I realized that there are civil society organizations already showing the way. The insight keeps me both proud and humbled. Civil society is leaving an impact on all levels. In a small village in the hills of Thailand, but also in the corridors in the United Nations in New York. And when I look back to the opening here, and I look back to India, this huge country, coming from Sweden, In the tiny country in one part of the northern part of Europe, what can India do? What can Asia do? Then I'm thinking of a young girl. She has been sitting outside the parliament in Sweden for 1 year. And the last days she has been in New York. She refused to say hello to Trump because he denies the climate change. But she has given strength and hope to young people all over the world. We need, you and me, we need to find those people from our side who could stand up for a better life in the future without drugs. Thank you.